What is going on? Movie meals. Do they happen often? I don't know anymore because there's no movies, but there is television. So I guess real quick before we get in, remember movie meals, like, subscribe, share here, all that great stuff. Follow me on Twitter. That'll be down below. And check out the Get Back Guys on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all that great stuff. New sports show. My guest today, Caleb, is back. He's been on a Weaver Wire. He's also been on the Get Back Boys a couple of times. Is here because this guy went from I'm not going to watch The Boys to I am into The Boys. So I was like, I got to get him on for the review. Kyle watched 2 episodes and I don't know if he bailed or stopped. So he was not even invited to this. Mainly because it's a spoiler review. Spoiler review, finale of season 2 of The Boys came today. Technically, we got to watch it last night, but it technically drops on Fridays. So we're just going to get into it here, Caleb. We're going to sweat it out, get nerdy, and I'll start with you. And when it's a spoiler review, we take it easy. You know, it's just what are the moments you really loved? Go off in any direction you want. Obviously, if you're watching this, you should have watched season 1, so spoilers for season 1 as well. If you want to give a quick rundown, too, of you know, what you thought of season 1, you're welcome to. But you take it in any direction you want. I'll bounce off of that with anything I found that I loved or didn't love, spoiler heavy. So what? Give me one thing that you just, you know, something about The Boys.
Okay, so for me, and this content is what your viewers are going to eat up right now.
Will they?
Because everyone cares about the fandoms of Caleb Bryson Keller. Everyone does. So
true.
I was thinking about this, fandoms that I've like just gotten into like that, and then just been super invested right out of the gate. And The Boys is definitely 100% filling a Game of Thrones sized hole in my life. 100%. I was thinking about other fandoms that I've fully invested in. I was thinking Pokemon when I was a little kid, Star Wars when I was a little kid, then the Lord of the Rings. Then you have those dark days in high school where it's really, you can't really like fully invest in the fandom. But then Game of Thrones came into my life and it was so pure and good. And then they ruined it. And now we have The Boys.
The Boys.
I love it. I love The Boys. Everything about The Boys tickles me right where I want to be tickled. Don't think too hard on that. I love it. I love The Boys. I'm in on it. That last episode was amazing.
You know, a good point off of that is we talk in our group quite often about
So off of that point, Game of Thrones. There was a huge hole left. I've been saying it on Movie Meals for a while. I've said it in our kind of friend circle. You know, when we're squadding up with the boys, huh? But when Game of Thrones left a gap in just television, it took over and said TV is different. They're no longer, you know, the serialized shows. Yes, they are shows, but they're movies. They're 8 to 10 hour movies. And that's what Game of Thrones became. It became a pop culture phenomenon. What was going to take that spot? And I think a bunch of people immediately was like, it's going to be The Mandalorian. And they rushed to The Mandalorian. And The Mandalorian is loved. I mean, it's got great reviews. The fans love it. I mean, it's praised. And it's rightly so, but it doesn't have the magic. I think the closest thing that we've had is The Boys. Say that again?
The Witcher like was talked about as maybe taking that mantle. And
Witcher 2, the Witcher people thought about, and I think The Witcher got compared more because of the sword and sandal aspect and the fantasy aspect. Mandalorian for the fantasy aspect, but the closest thing is The Boys. And we said this, I think, to a buddy of ours, and he said, you know, The Boys is missing that fantasy element that Game of Thrones had, which is true, but it's got everything else. Is it missing that fantasy element, that deep sword and sandal, you know, hard fantasy? Yes, but it's still got some sci-fi fantasy in there, obviously. It's realistic, though. It's gritty. It's dark. It's funny. It completely averts your expectations at every turn. And that all together sums up what Game of Thrones was able to do, where Mandalorian has the fantasy, has some humor, has good action and drama moments, but doesn't quite have some of the the subverting of expectations as much, and the surprises as much, and the rally arounding. And The Witcher kind of didn't have that either. The Boys has it, and I loved this season. I haven't watched season 1 in a year, so I'm curious from you which season you liked more, because I lean towards 2, but it's fresh in my head, so I might lean towards 1. So which one did you like more?
So really quick on that point, think about what an amazing, we're talking about Game of Thrones still now. Like, Game of Thrones is the Michael Jordan of television shows. Even though it has its last 2 seasons that are not great, we're still comparing all the good shows we see to that benchmark that came before. It's Michael Jordan of shows. It even though those last 2 seasons stunk. But season 2 for me, just clearly, I loved every episode of season 2. I like season 1 a lot. I was invested in season 1, but season 2, and specifically with the development of Homelander, I think.
Let's get into that.
Yeah. I think with Homelander and Anthony Starr doing his thing, it takes the Boys to the next level. So those 2 things make season 2 phenomenal for me, better than season 1, and I like season 1 a lot.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards season 2. I liked more Homelander specifically, his arc, because again, you watched it sooner, so correct me if I'm wrong, but the vibe I remember getting from season 1 was that Homelander obviously is a take on Superman, what Superman would be like in real life, especially growing up the way he did. He didn't grow up the way Superman does in the comics, but it creates this, it painted this picture in season 1 that we have this guy who is basically our villain. He is the villain, but there's a little bit of layers to him, but then they peeled back all those layers. We saw a little bit of it, but peeling it back this season is what got me. I mean, from the fact that he's like sexually pleasured by milk and, all that stuff with what happened in season 1. And then that turns into Stormfront and what she's able to do. I mean, just at the, let's just skip to the very end in that last episode last night. I mean, just the look he gives her. I saw a lot of people, when she's just fried, loved that moment. And when she's just mouthing off all this stuff in German, and he kind of gives her this look. And I saw a lot of people on Twitter kind of saying, Homelander's giving her the look of, that, like Daenerys gave Sophie Turner's character, whose complete character name is spacing me, Sansa, that kind of like that look. And I didn't get that at all. I saw a look of pain. I saw a look of like he actually was starting to care for her, but at the same time got it. I mean, when he shows up covered in blood, it's, and you see, for me, the fact that they made me care for him and I hate him. Like at the end when he is saying, "Come here, son." And at the very last moment, we actually saw him be a good dad. We saw him actually connecting with his son. I'm talking about where his son is in trouble. His son is like, "This is too much. I'm having a problem at the restaurant." He says, "No, I'm going to take you away. Forget the girl. I'm taking him away," takes him away. We're starting that moment. It's like, that's the subverting expectations. My mind now starts to go to, is Homelander going to turn into a great dad? And then it ends with what happens, which it's not. And it then changes his arc and sends him in another direction, where we get that moment at the end where he's masturbating to the city because he's a god and he thinks he's a god. And his arc, the fact that they're able to take me in these directions, subvert those expectations with his character. I mean, his character to me was the best of the season. I've loved his development and his arc. He's been my favorite.
Yeah. So I described, and I don't know if this is a great analogy, but I described the audience ends up feeling like the girl in high school that has got this really big, bulky, manly boyfriend who is just toxic masculinity, got all the daddy issues, and you're afraid of him because he's really powerful and he can hurt you, but you see that little grain of humanity in there and you think you can change him. But
I get it. I like it.
And so like it's just, they've created a toxic relationship with Homelander in that show, And then Anthony Starr just knocks it out of the park, man. He's so good. Got to get Emmy nods for that, right?
If he doesn't get an Emmy nomination, it'll be a snub, a huge
Yeah.
snub. It'll be massive. I think there's a few people that probably deserve some Emmy nominations, but him might deserve the win going into this next Emmy. And the Emmys is going to be a long ways away. We just had last year's Emmys, which TV is always so far behind, and it's always crazy to me. But yeah, no, he is great. Is there any other another great thing about this season that you love? You want to go off of here? We got Homelander, how much we loved him.
Yeah, the Homelander acting, fantastic. One more little thing on that. I think in terms of, so I always think about the writing of shows. And so I had a buddy who we talked about how the Homelander character, it was too broad in season 1. There was too much going on, so it was hard to emotionally connect because it felt like they were trying to make you feel for him, but really he's just such a hard guy to feel for. Season 2, we've had enough time now to see those layers and really care about those layers. So Homelander again, but I like all the characters. I think I really, each one of them fits in this specific lane, and they're all doing really interesting things. I thought the Butcher character this season was really good, and they've set him up for season 3 with this. Now his love interest is gone. I don't know how he's going to react to that event.
What is an unleashed Butcher like? Because he's been tethered to this, I've got to get I've got to kill the Supes because they killed my wife, finding out they didn't do it. And then what happened, he's now off the leash. What does a dog like that do off the leash? Yeah. I'm with you. I love it.
Yeah. What was interesting, the end of season 2, it feels like they've tied up a lot of loose ends, and it feels like like the stakes didn't get raised at the end of the season. Really, like, we don't have this at the end of season 1. You felt like, oh, they're in a lot of trouble. I don't know. I don't see how they're coming out of this. But it's kind of just an even playing field here at the end of season 2. They could go anywhere. I have no idea where they're going to go.
The cool thing about the very, very end, and let's touch on it, because I had that thought too, where it's like, man, I remember in season 1, they left me being like, I want season 2 now. And this is wrapping up as if it's a series finale. If this is the end of the show. Because like everybody's saying, no, I'm going to stay here to do this, or I'm going to do this. I'm whatnot. And they I think are so good by going from one season of like making you desperate for the dinner to the next one where it's like, now this season I am desperate for it, but it's like, I don't have any theories. I don't have that feeling of they're doomed. I don't have any of that thought. My thought is, where are we going? And they leave you with just the perfect small little tease that sets up where it reveals who blows up all those heads. And it's she's a senator, correct?
Senator, yeah.
It's the senator, and that Huey is applying.
Senator Newman, I think that's her name. I can't be wrong about that.
Yeah, and that she is a soup, and she is also playing her own game, and that's another thing. Comparing it to Game of Thrones, obviously in the title, the whole show is who is playing the game to win the throne. Like, who is winning that game? It's all about the Game of Thrones. And that's kind of low-key what's going on. This show's able to handle so many characters. I love when every character's on screen for the most part, or I'm entertained at the least. And now they've set it up where there's so many players. We get introduced with a new player for this leader of the church. He's taken out by now what looks to be a bigger, badder player in the game. And do we know what the game is leading towards? Is it leading towards dominance? Is it leading towards ending Homelander? Is it leading towards bringing down Vought? I don't know. And I like that the season ended that way, where I'm sitting here like at the end of The Force Awakens, kind of sitting going, where are we going from here? And I love that feeling. So I'm with you. Yeah,
I hadn't thought about, you're right. It is, man, we keep talking about Game of Thrones, but it is that the competing for power, strength. Who's the head of Vought? What's that character's name? We can just say the actor, I guess. Who's the?
Oh, you're killing me here. It's our boy from, to be honest, we've been comparing it to Game of Thrones, but really it also should be compared to the real Michael Jordan at TV, and that's Breaking Bad, where they're going and stealing all their villains from.
Fair enough. But he
Got
has
his
a
name on
line
the
in
tip
there
of my
while
tongue.
you look up who that is as we fumble
It's on
along.
the tip of my tongue. Esposito.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah.
Yeah, his character, he says something to the effect of, it's always been about the dollars. He's okay having Stormfront in the 7, even though she's a racist and wants him out of society. It's okay because at the end of the day, it's all about dollars, which in this society is power. And so you're right. So it is. This is the Game of Thrones in kind of a more modern, more realistic, less fantasy setting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And off of that, we talked a little bit about how some of the dialogue and some of the arcs that some of the characters went on were not the best. We talked, the other night about. But that happened in Game of Thrones. It happens sometimes in a Breaking Bad. But those shows, it's the old cliche. The stage is for the actor. Directors have movies, and television is for writing. And the writing is great. Even though there is maybe a few moments where it's like, I didn't necessarily love this arc, or I didn't love, some of the lines. And there are some lines in this season that I felt were a little bit more wooden than felt realistic. And that's going to happen in even a great show. It happens in Game of Thrones. It happens in Breaking Bad. But this show's writing is so great and next level overall that it stands out to all the other shows. It's up, and that's why we're comparing it to a Breaking Bad and a Game of Thrones, because one of the things I love, you bring up the kind of lunch they have talking. It's a 5-minute conversation, and it's one of the best parts of the whole show because it's the conversations that people have. It's not necessarily always the action with these superheroes. It's the conversations, which is what a Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad did that The Boys is doing. And it's another comparison because I live for those conversations. That conversation is awesome. And he delivers a Breaking Bad line back to him with that line where he says history's always been about the money. And I love it because it's true. I love it.
Yeah.
It's such a great line. I mean, even when he walks in and, what do you want to drink or whatever? And he goes, how many, you got a gun at my head. No, I've got more than one because I know you. And, that's a great, like old school samurai conversation or an old school, Western, that's that type of, I know who you are. I know who, back and forth. We know who each other is. And we respect the heck out of each other. So we've set up all this stuff. Let's just get right to brass tacks here. That conversation is awesome to me. And there's no trickery. It's just the dialogue. It's the performances. And they both knock it out of the park. I love it.
100% agree. 100% agree. And I think what's interesting when you're saying about, some of the moments can feel wooden, I agree. There are some things in season 2, specifically with dialogue and character development, where I was kind of like, really? But in hindsight, I'm specifically thinking about the car ride with Butcher and Starlight when Huey is injured. Well, that conversation to me at the time, I was like, do we really need to be this heavy-handed, kind of ham-fisted with the dialogue, forcing these two to have a relationship? We all see what they're trying to do. Why do we have to be so kind of in your face about it? In hindsight, they needed to kind of go there so that the pieces were in place for that finale. And so in hindsight, I give it a pass, I think, for me. But yeah, the whole show, just I'm in. I love the show. This is my new fandom. I'm in this.
That conversation specifically, I actually really like because it to me felt like the boiling point that they had kind of tried, and it was like, all right, like that felt realistic. It felt like if I was in that situation, I might explode too and finally let my emotions out. When you're high stress, that's usually when you do it. For me, the wooden dialogue was just every now and then there was a line where it was like that just felt wooden. Like I can't even think of the specifics. That's how much of a nitpick this is, but it was like, at the last finale, I thought it was a little wooden when she says, what's the deal with Billy Joel? And he kind of says it. It didn't necessarily feel like that was a realistic time to have that conversation. I mean,
right. And we've already done that development between those two too.
Yeah, and it led up to a great moment with, I think, him talking about his mom finally, but just the way it was written in like it's been individual sentences for me that don't necessarily work, where it's like, like, would that character really have said that in that moment at that time? Maybe. And my example might have not been the best, but
I'll give you one just really quick, see what you
Sure.
think. I've got one from that same area of where Frenchie, they've got all the RPGs in the back. And so Stormfront shows up and they're all afraid.
Yeah.
And so Frenchie's line is something like, "Get to the car. The RPGs are our only chance." And then the thing goes up. What? You don't need that. Why put that in?
That little line where it's like, that's our only chance, it feels like, something a Power Ranger would say.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's, and these could be lines straight out of the comic. I don't know. But like, it's those moments. And it's not like I felt that an entire character has necessarily been wooden. I have a character that I have found least entertaining of all the others throughout this season. I still enjoyed what I watched, but found it the least no, I actually liked the Deep's arc, but his payoff was not what I was hoping for. I was hoping there'd be some serious, legit payoff for him this season, and it wasn't, which also makes sense because he's also, like, I also hate him. Like, what he did was not cool.
He's the Greyjoy of this show.
He is. He is the Theon Greyjoy. I'm with you. For me, it was, why can't I think of her name? You even sent it to me today.
Camiko?
Camiko, yeah. Her, I liked everything until the brother left, and then she became stale, and it wasn't necessarily that and I get it. It's like, well, what else she's supposed to do? She's hurt. I get that, and I liked seeing those real moments where she was hurt, and there were good moments where she froze, but there was a lot of moments where it was like, this feels a little shoehorned, like we need to have her do something. And I felt that sometimes in Game of Thrones, and that happens in a great show. People get upset with a couple of little nitpicks, but that's what they are. They're nitpicks. That was my least. Every time it went to her, it wasn't like I was groaning, It's not Debbie and Shameless. It's me just seeing, hoping that it's not something that's okay for me. And most of the time it was, but her payoff at the end was awesome. That fight is awesome. So I was all for it. When she crack or like readjusts her neck, woo! I'm here for it.
I audibly gasped, and we know that she can like heal magically. I still audibly gasped and was like, "What?" For a second, it was floored.
I'm just waiting. Let's talk about that fight. I'm waiting for that moment where this show does become Game of Thrones and it's constantly under fire, because you could easily, when Maeve shows up, go, "How did she get there? How? I didn't see her walking. I didn't see her show up in a car. She can't fly. We know that." Like, I saw that scene, and that scene is awesome. And she just shows up. Great line. Great hit. I'm for it. I'm for the girl fight. I'm for them all beating them up, beating Stormfront up to a pulp. I'm here for. I love it. I love that moment. I'm not nitpicking it, but I'm wondering when that becomes a nitpick, because I'm sitting here, we're talking the comparisons, and I remember people going, "Well, they can't do this. This is, how did we get here so quick? How did we do this? How did we do this? Well, how did Meg get there so fast? It's a TV show. Suspend your disbelief, you wackos."
First of all, Maeve clearly has a cabin out there. It's a couple miles away. She was splitting wood. I don't know why everyone's freaking out about it.
There's a deleted scene of her just sprinting in a field, like just full throttle. And speaking of Maeve too, I really liked her arc, and I liked the way it ended. I liked that she went, no pun intended, went deep into herself. It was super upset. I loved that moment where she gets raw and flips the table and shows her power. And then her, her girlfriend, whose name has escaped me. This happens if you're a Movie Meal fan and the lights are on. I always forget the names of characters on a show I watched last night. But like, she had a real great moment where she looked in legit fear and terror. And I really liked Maeve this season, but I've talked a lot. You take it over here.
I don't think you have. I think you need to talk more. What else did Al like?
Everything.
Maeve was good. Maeve was really good. The Deep, to me, you love to hate him. And then he also, the whole thing with his gills speaking, and Patton Oswalt doing the voice of
I loved that.
I thought that was funny. I was in on that.
Excellent.
And then the thing about The Boys, I think, ultimately, which really so all of this is fun, And then the thing that really takes it to the next level for me is the social commentary that it's doing.
Yeah.
So the Church of the Collective being the satire on Scientology.
And Tom Cruise specifically.
And Tom Cruise specifically, yeah. To me, all of that social commentary that it can do. Game of Thrones had this. It couldn't really do it like this, though, because like this is way more at the front of the show, right?
Yeah. And it makes sense, too, because it takes place in our world where Game of Thrones doesn't. So it's going to hit differently and better in that sense.
Right. So using the Deep to kind of get us into the Church of the Collective, and which they only just kind of had on the periphery in season 1, super smart. Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. Just going off of other characters, might as well just kind of hit them. Black Noir, I liked this season. He's still kind of just being Batman, and I loved the whole tree nut allergy thing. I think that was a great and funny way to kind of, again, subvert your expectation into a different direction. And I don't want him necessarily doing a lot, and I'm not ready for his entire backstory yet. And I like that that's being kept that way. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel about Black Noir this season?
100% agree. Keep him on, like, kind of on the sidelines where he's doing the weird spy thing, spying on him when they're in the aunt's house. The tree nut allergy, like, keep him like as this sideline character for now. Yeah, 100% with you. Yep.
Love it. Who else? Starlight. I know you have interesting thoughts on Starlight. Why don't we touch on her this season?
I really like Starlight. I don't know if it's so much it would be difficult to write. There's just not a lot to her, in my opinion. And I know that's probably not going to be a popular opinion. She's not really like the sexy lamp, but she's close. Like, she doesn't have there's not a lot about her that humanizes her to me personally. And I don't know how you act that character where she's just super nice and then also in love with Huey. So for me, she's a little bit two-dimensional, but this is one of those nitpicky things that you say. Would I be super happy with 2 more hours of just straight Starlight material? Absolutely. So
Starlight for me, I liked her season. I didn't love the necessarily always the stuff with Mom. She can be a little one-dimensional at times or two-dimensional, but I think she turns out pretty good. I end up really liking her, and I've seen the layers, I think, for myself. The thing I get with her that I noticed in the last 2 episodes is, and this might be an intentional thing, sometimes I think she's really powerful, and sometimes I think she's not that powerful. Like, her power isn't actually that great. Not that she's not a good character, a great character, but that her, like, power isn't that good. Because, like, when she, at the end of last season, like, I was like, man, she's got some power to her. Granted, she does get it from electricity. They were in an open field, so maybe I'm being unfair. I also wonder if the show is intentionally kind of keeping everybody's powers kind of, like, cool, not amazing, because they want everybody to understand how powerful Homelander is.
yeah.
And how different it is for like Maeve's fear is legit. Because, you know, she's obviously a play on Wonder Woman. Would Wonder Woman be this afraid of Superman? No, but Wonder Woman in the comics can take Superman. Can Maeve actually take him? I think they're doing that on purpose, but that's my only kind of thoughts with Starlight for the most part. You got anything else on her? You want to jump to one of the other characters?
I think for her, when I say 2D, I also think this about Huey. If she's 2D, then I also think Huey 2D is 2D. But then together, I really like them together. So maybe I'm probably being unfair.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair. And let's just jump over to Huey then. I think Huey did take a bit of a step back this season, but I liked him. He's not the main guy this season. I don't think he was. I think it was more about Homelander and it was more about Butcher. And I was here for that development. Like Game of Thrones, sometimes you're going to take a little bit of side journey for somebody else because Huey isn't necessarily our main character. Everybody's kind of our main character. And I liked it. I really liked him ending wanting a job to take down Vought the right way. And he's about to work for a soup who we don't know. I mean, it ends thinking, is she a villain? But this whole time we thought she's a hero. She could still be a hero. We don't know. So, I liked Huey enough. I didn't necessarily think anything was bad with him. He just did take a back seat, and that's okay.
I'm very curious. So, it makes me wonder. She's not a part of VOT, right? Is
No,
it
she's trying to take him down.
But so they kept saying it's a coup from the inside, and I thought that meant Stormfront was that thing, but now I'm not sure. So because VOT supposedly made all these soups, so where does she come from? I think she might be a part of VOT, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing.
That. I like that because they do set it up where it could be either way. It could be Stormfront, and it could be that it's not. Like, again, it's that comparison, man. It really is. It's so good at making us think these different directions. I hadn't thought about that. That could definitely be true. So, maybe is VOT trying to destroy itself? Like, maybe he understands the money is going to be better if he gets out this way and, under the table goes and joins her. I don't know. I like these theories. I'm into it. And I'd like Huey being a part of that is going to be super interesting because we know Huey's going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Huey's going to want to protect people and the people he cares about. So, yeah, I didn't think about that. That sets up for some cool stuff.
Yeah. Again, no clue where season 3 goes. No idea.
Yeah. Seriously. So what about the rest of the boys? Frenchie got a little bit more this season. What did you think of him?
I like Frenchie a lot. I like that character. I don't really have much to say about him other than he's there and enjoyable. To me, Mother's Milk is probably one of my favorites. I really liked the monologue he had in the diner with Starlight this season.
Yeah, I liked that too.
And writing, just really good.
Yeah. And he gets a couple great moments, I think, that are smaller, like the moment where Huey and Butcher arguing in his aunt's house, and he says, I'm not going to move. And Butcher's like, I'll move you. And he just steps in and says, well, why don't you move me too? And Butcher's like, okay, I can't deal with this. Is the muscle. So I liked both of them. It's weird because Frenchie's thing, when I watched it, I was like, I'm not loving this. But as it went on, I ended up growing more into it and liking it more. And it makes me wonder where are we going next again, because it's like, all right, we've got our backstory for pretty much all the boys now. Like who's left? Is somebody joining? I think we've just touched on all the main characters. I guess A-Train. What do you think of A-Train?
I like this new A-Train where he's just focused on getting back into the 7. Thought season 2 for him was good. Again, with him being back in the 7, because they have one more open spot they did not give to the deep. They didn't give it back to the deep. So they've got that open spot. They can do whatever they want with that one. I'm curious what they're going to do with that. But yeah, A-Train was fun this season again, playing with the deep, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked A-Train. I really liked his ending where he gives them the files, as well as being pumped to be back in the 7 and what he did. His moment with Starlight, I really like. It's one of the highlights of the whole thing where and you see that another thing for him, it's about the money. His whole thing about getting these powers was about getting out of poverty and becoming, rich and being able to support himself.
Did he do that in season 1 or that was season 2, wasn't it? Where he says,
yeah,
don't mess with the money.
Yeah, he said you never mess with the money, and she said, some things are more important, and he responds with, rich people always say that. And I thought he had a great moment there. There were a couple times it was like, all right, it's just our A-Train kind of time where I didn't necessarily love what was going on, like him being on the movie set, the movie stuff. But I liked the way he went. The deep, I don't know where they're going to go with him, because the deep, it could be so angry. Like, what if he became the next villain? Like, what if he goes after them and actually tries to take them out? I don't know how he takes anybody out because his power is talking to animals or the fish. And he's a play on Aquaman. And, Aquaman can do a lot more in the comics than I've seen of the deep. I haven't seen the deep being able to do much more. So I'd like to, like, can he control water? Can he, like, what can he actually do? And I hope eventually, I don't know how you feel about this. Um, another big popular show is Stranger Things. And Stranger Things, obviously very different shows, but my big criticism of them is they've kind of just done the same thing.
Yeah.
And the boys haven't done that yet, I don't think, but I think they could go that direction of just kind of end up doing the same thing with it just being about Homelander, and we're trying to take a Homelander, and I'd like to see a moment where they take it to the next level. Like, I'd love to see where they dump all the money, if this is the final season or whatever, where we actually see these superheroes go all out as if it's like a Marvel movie. Like I want to see what their powers can actually do more than the little we've seen them, because some of them we've seen be extremely deadly. Some powers we have seen be not that deadly. Some powers look good, like, Starlight kind of, sometimes looks incredible, sometimes doesn't. I wouldn't mind seeing like a legit powerful fight where like like it's the Avengers taking out Homelander or something. And
Got to give them those HBO dollars, man.
yeah, and it's Amazon. I think they'll be all right with their money.
Yeah.
Jeff Bezos is, Doc Ock arms. Have you seen that on Twitter the last few days? I think they'll be. Oh, look that up. It's creepy how that man has so much money. But they've got enough money, I think. But I'd like to see that eventually, and I think it's something to build towards. Stranger Things is finally building towards, we're going into the Upside Down. Let's build towards something real big, like a big moment for this show, because I think that is what fans would want. At least was what I would want. Like a big moment like that where we really see how powerful the Supes are. Because right now I think most are strong, and then there's Homelander, who's clearly a god. And again, that might be the point of what the show is doing, because it works for his character.
Well, so a couple things on that. One, I will say that this show has made me way more respectful towards the super speed superpower, because I didn't think that was a very cool one until I saw this show, and now, oh yeah, there's a lot of applications for being really freaking fast. Fair enough.
I watched the first few seasons of the Flash show on CW, which had a great couple first seasons and then got awful. But like a power I never thought of, which the show the first episode opens with, is that you're so fast you could run through a person.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought about that, because you always think of the Flash as just quick and he zips, or you just see, an aerial view where it's him just dodging cars or buildings, and you don't really think about that kind of aspect of somebody who has super speed. And you're with me that he's so fast he could open a car door and get in it and then close it and get in with everybody. Like that kind of stuff I don't necessarily think about. And I'm with you. That power got a little bit more respect for me as well. Like I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. The showrunner, they do an after show thing with I
haven't watched it.
Aisha Taylor and or Tyler, and yeah, I watched the last one for the season review, and the showrunner guy, I'm gonna blank on his name, so I'm not even gonna try, but he definitely, the first thing he said was, we're going to the drawing board right now and figuring out how we can get bigger and more ridiculous for season 3. So
good.
Yeah, that's where we're headed.
And I know that you have gotten the comic. You're going to read the comic, correct?
I did. I finished so I got the omnibus #1, and I finished the first comic last night as well.
Yes. Oh, does it take place over season 1? That's what I thought I'd heard, that basically the first comic was basically season 1.
Well, so the first issue, I guess, is the first episode of season 1.
Sure. But a lot of the similar beats you've seen in the show so far?
Seems like it. It actually seems darker to me, this comic. The show, which is interesting. But so far it seems darker. Yeah. Yeah,
I think you can even no matter how dark you get on TV, the page will always be able to get there more. Yeah. And the detail you can put into a moment of the page, but and you're liking it, you're going to keep reading them?
I think so. Yeah, it's I'm in, man. Again,
might need to borrow them from you.
Please do. Yeah. Just that next.
Yeah. And one of the people who is in charge of bringing the show to light is Seth Rogen, who's an executive producer And he has knocked it out of the park as a producer. And I love that a guy like him who has the comedy chops, and he's a great cameo in this season.
Great.
And it's at the perfect time. It's early, so you forget about it, which people watching this might have forgotten about it. But he brings a lot as a producer, being able to bring that humor and take it to the next level. And the showrunner, who I'm going to look up here real quick, Eric Kerpikik, I don't know how to say his last name, is the showrunner. But if you don't have a good showrunner, it can ruin a show. So the fact that it's him, he's got 2 great seasons under his belt. Everybody's for it. Everybody's liking it. The cast, the behind the scenes, I've heard everything's great. And that he's saying we're going to the drawing board to get even bigger and bigger and bigger. I am for that. That sounds awesome to me.
Great. Yeah, me too, man. I'm excited. I wish, part of me wishes that I hadn't watched this show right now so that I could have picked it up like 2 years from now when there's like 3 or 4 seasons, so I could just binge through all of them.
Huge binge, yeah. But there's something special about this, the water cooler talk that we're going to have over the next year of where they're going to go. And as we wrap up here, our review, one more thing about shows based off comic books have had incredible success, and they've had some incredible problems. The Walking Dead went in that direction. And I've heard that this show changes things from the comics. I've seen some things. I don't want to say it just in case you haven't read it. But for the audience, just because I'll keep that spoiler free for the comic. But there's some things they've changed that I've heard that they haven't for the comic, which I'm all for. I like that they're doing that. They're doing kind of the following the beats, but not and keeping the important things, but changing what can change. So that way it keeps even the ones who have read it on their toes, kind of like what Game of Thrones was able to do for a while. So I'm for that. And Walking Dead went from doing successfully to not at all to kind of to maybe to okay. So we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there any final thoughts you've got on The Boys that you want to just throw out there, and we can wrap up?
Boys for life, baby. Boys
all right. Well, hey guys, that's a review of season 2, kind of a season 1 as well of The Boys. I have to have Caleb back next time for season 3 of The Boys when that drops next year. Can't wait. Maybe we'll have to do an Emmy review too, or just freak out if for some reason he's snubbed. But yeah. All right, guys, remember to like, subscribe, share. Go check out the new podcast, The Get Back Guys. And Caleb, thanks for coming on.
Anytime.
And we'll see you next time, Mom. See you later, guys.